Well, hello, fuck that one up already. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm alone in Finland. Apologies for this. I've actually re-recorded it 4 times, but I got a hell of an electric shock today, and you're talking 230 amps, DC, and God knows how many volts. But it's buzzing and my brain's still fuzzy. So I get home and have a look at a little white box that happens to be on the Eve launcher at the moment. Let's just bring it up. We have an upcoming event. Now this is going to kick off Tuesday next week and it's going to run for a little while. This is the winter event that's coming up. They're calling it the Winter Nexus, the Hunters of the Storm. So Capsuleers, the storm approaches New Eden and the Sanchez Nation is under usher in the Winter Nexus from the 9th of December to the 12th of January. So the TLDR, you get volatile ice storms for seasonal challenges. You're gonna hunt Yoil lad for special tech that unlocks with more storms. You're gonna get daily login rewards, the same type that we all know. There is a potential for a couple of 100,000 skill points. I do believe it shows it further down. But essentially, you've got some stuff going on. Nice and simple. So some new stuff's coming out, a little bit of a thing that you can do daily. At the very least, you want to be logging in every day, going into that start screen and claiming your rewards. You want to try and start it on Tuesday next week, on the 9th, so that you get everything, you get the maximum amount, because it always builds up over time, and you should be able to, at the very least, be able to skill up all your accounts. Remember, if you're multi-boxing, or if you've got accounts in Alpha, you can log into that start character selection screen without, you can do that for multiple clients at the same time. So if you've got multiple clients but they happen to be in alpha, you can turn them all on at the same time and then click the reward, close the account, click the reward, close the account, so you don't have to be sort of in and out all the time. Just a little reminder for you, because as you know, I've got a fair few accounts here. I've got 6 separate accounts, and at the moment 2 of them are in Omega and 4 of them are not. So you can turn on everything, click the rewards, and away you go. At the same time, from the 9th, I do not know this for sure, but I am assuming this. So if you're looking at buying anything like Plex or stuff like that, leave it until after the 9th, because they most usually run promotions at the same time as these events, or possibly a week after. So if you're looking for game time or stuff like that, leave it until it starts. They have said that if you are going to claim any of the rewards, if you go into Omega at any point, you will get the Omega rewards from the days before that over the thing. That's what's been said so far, so hopefully that's true. But it does mean that, say for instance, you don't have the money to put your stuff into Omega straight away, you will be able to do it later on and you will get some of the rewards. So maybe if they're doing short-term deals, like those little 14-day deals, if you're not skilled up, if you're not somebody who constantly subscribes, you may be able to get that. But the other part of this, so with this, it's some interesting and some nice news. However, at the same time, there was another little thing that came up. Let me just pull it across here. We also had this, which was the Okami Tea Time, so it's basically a little bit of a blog. But I want to show you a couple of little clips from it that sort of hammer home exactly what I talk about for the most part. Right, so first up I want you to hear how this is described, because I think this is very important to get this right.
Ecstatic. Honestly, this has been probably from my sort of like the things I care about in Eve in terms of like design and what's landing with players and how everybody is feeling. This is probably one of the most successful expansions I've seen.
So there you have it from the lead game designer. You have that this is considered one of the best expansions that they've done, and the vast majority of it was PvE, not PvP. So that sort of shows you how the community is responding to it, as opposed to normal when everybody gets sort of pissed off about something. Say for instance they do a Null-sec expansion where the Null-sec players aren't happy it was enough or it wasn't the right thing. The high-sec players are annoyed that they're ignored. The low-sec players are sort of annoyed that they were also kind of ignored, and then the Wormhole players are just sat there going, "We're over here, does anybody know we still exist?" So this is something that's nice to see, that they're recognising how successful it is. However,
we're seeing numbers. So like so many people are both coming back to Eve to check out what we've done. And that makes me feel so proud of everything and everything that the team has done. So I'm super happy. I'm loving it.
so him saying that he's super happy is obviously good, because if players are coming back, then he's going to be happy. He's doing his job right if he's bringing players back. That makes perfect sense to me. That is a fantastic thing in general. That's, well, it's my whole purpose in what I'm doing here, is to try and bring players back, specifically by sort of telling the truth about what's going on and showing perspective to some people that might not always have that perspective, or we each have a different perspective on any object. No one person can see the entire truth of a situation. We've all got different views from different angles, so it's good to put out that sort of truth, and it's good for that to be sort of coming back.
And now I'm just trying to sort of muse on what's working so well about this, and how we kind of keep a good pattern of establishing these kinds of things in the future as well.
So it's quite a valid point to show that they're trying to learn from it, they're trying to figure it out. However, just a second later, this comment.
And then on the other hand, I think we have stuff like all of the mining work we did with the mining UX and UI. There is this thing that exists that has been here since the beginning, and maybe isn't the most fun or the best. And how can we push that thing? How can we take that? Like, what's a good amount that we can push this thing forward that will make people feel happy and want to try this again?
Right, so with that particular comment, that is something that it's being framed in a very odd way. And I don't think that the developer is lying or anything like that. Never put down to maliciousness what could be explained by ignorance. But what he's just saying there, yes, they've put a new UI over the top of it, but it hasn't fundamentally changed anything. It's just given you the ability that was already in the game to scan all the roids and figure them out and do it slightly easier. And then they've added a couple of ships in that are a good stepping stone for newer players. But then bringing back some of the minerals like kernite, like omber, back to high-sec, because remember, they talked about replacing the anomalies, but originally kernite and omber were 0.5 security minerals. They were in asteroid belts. This isn't a 20-year change. This was something that was changed and taken away, and the entire reason behind it being taken away was to put it in low-sec, to push more people out to low-sec to get those minerals. It is that drive to drive conflict for the sake of conflict. And this is the part where CCP is sort of mind-locked, and it's quite obvious in some of the other things that are said that even the lead game designer is still locked into that way of thinking, that there must be conflict for the game to succeed. But actually, when you hear them talking about it in other ways, they're talking about destruction is required for creation. They require things to be destroyed so that people want to create more. Now, that's an arguable method of thinking. Some people think it, some people don't. However, destruction can happen through PvE. Destruction can happen through PvP. Destruction can happen by accident, by deliberate action. Like, for instance, the mutations. If you want to mutate a module, you're going to bin a whole load of module to make some of the other ones better. So these things that are existing in the game, there's already the potential for destruction that exists outside of the PvP universe. And it very much bugs me that they have all of the information. They have presented the information. And for those of you that are asking about this, you can get these on the EVE Online things. You can go back and look through the talks that they do specifically on the FanFest. This is where a lot of the information comes from, where they have pointed out the amount of players that engage in PvP, engage in PvE, the amount of players in high-sec or low-sec. There's been a whole load of people that have gone, oh, where do you get this? Well, I get it directly from CCP. This is what they have said. This is where the information is. Go and have a look at it. And you're right to be critical. You are right to question whether it's true. That's always a good mindset, and I would never shit on anybody for that. But with their information, they have all the answers, but they are still going, I don't understand.
Of course, one of the things we care about on our side for players, for content, is the concept of destruction, like putting reasons for people to fight out there. One of our, hypotheses behind the phase fields is what if we put like basically the highest value thing that can exist in Eve currently, like as a single source of single faucet into the economy out there, and we surprised you with this on your doorstep, would people fight over this thing?
So there you've got the point of driving conflict or putting out an update specifically for destruction. So they're going, here is a mining update. We want you to fight over it. It's like, mining and PvP are not the same fucking thing. And when you try and force people into those things, and they're coming out and saying, this is the most valuable thing in the game, we want you to fight over it. That shows a sort of lack of understanding of the fundamentals of the majority of the fan base. Yes, there are PvPers out there are PvPers in every multiplayer game, but as every study has shown, and CCP's own numbers have shown, that the vast majority of players don't engage or don't willingly engage with PvP. Just as a little addendum while I was actually putting this together, I also remembered one other thing, is that when you're looking at PvE, looking at mining specifically in Null-sec, one of the things that they did was to lower belts or to pull belts out of certain regions, but they also put in spawns anomalies for mining. However, they loaded them with rats, and in some cases some of the higher end ones are loaded with rats in a way that originally you could find those minerals amongst the belts. They weren't always anomalies, so it was easier to do. So they sort of they tried to force it into PvP. They tried to make more people join together to do a mining up, so that if you wanted to do that, you would need to put out a couple of ships, but you would also need a couple of heavy hitters to be able to go out and do that. And the actual effect of that was that you got a lot less of those minerals being mined, especially when it comes to mercuroxide and things like that. The higher end minerals that were contained, that were gatekept by these belts, you would still get people out mining them, but far less, because people couldn't just jump into a ship and go and mine them. They needed multiple accounts, or they needed to clear the belt, do some mining, come back, clear the belt again when it respawned. So you had these things over and over again that had to be a cycle, that were made more difficult and affected the economy. And sort of it just basically tore away some of the people that were doing those activities. Then you bring that same thing more up to date for the future with the expansion that's just happened, and you'd actually notice that although CCP appears to be surprised at the fact that there isn't much conflict, part of the reason there isn't much conflict is because you've got so much amalgamation of the null block groups that have all come together. So when these things spawn, there isn't any competition for them, because there isn't any competition in that area of space. There is a big chunk of space controlled by certain alliances or coalitions or things like this. You're not going to get conflict there, because nobody's going to attack somebody that's blue to them. So you're going to get these things mined together. In low-sec, you've got this same problem that's going on, where because of actually the moon mining that they brought back in, you've got this problem where all of the groups are coalescing into a couple of groups, and then everybody else is getting out. So there isn't the conflict there to drive the conflict the way they want this anomaly to go in. They're too late for this to exist, or they need to do something game-wise to actually break up the big player blocks and make it more interesting for smaller groups to compete with each other, instead of incentivizing the bigger group to make the bigger profit, which is what it is at the moment. The problem with that is that that's going to go entirely contrary to what the CSM wants, especially, or specifically what the null block CSM wants, because you're going to have big groups of players represented by their own CSM that want the best for their group, and the best for their group is expansion in space, whereas the best for the actual game is to incentivize smaller groups. So I don't see a way through that. It's something for CCP to think about, and I do think that they are paying attention to it because of what's happening in low-sec. But God knows if that's going to fix anything.
And like, of course, we have our hypotheses behind these and how it might work out, and over time maybe that will change. Often these things do change in Eve.
So as they're saying, this is their idea, this is their mentality that's out there, and they're saying that the mentality might change. Except it's been 20 fucking years and they're still at this. They are still sticking by what the original ones were saying is, this is a bastard simulator. Everybody can be a bastard. Yeah, but people aren't naturally born to be that way. And some people like to experiment with that way. But that's not a common thing. And nowadays, especially with all of the crap that's going on in the world, that is not something that people want to do in their own time. It is more common to get friendly interactions than it is to get nasty interactions. And if you do have an entire game that's based around those nasty interactions, you have an entire game that has got a very toxic fan base. And that toxic fan base is bad for everybody, the fans that are there, and also the game developers, because a toxic fan base can backlash like a motherfucker. So it's not something you want to cultivate. Whereas an open sandbox, catering to all types, making sure there's content for PvP, making content for the sake of it being interesting to play, not to drive somebody down a particular way of doing it. Before this, one of the most successful things that they did was Abyssal. PvE focused specifically. That was their biggest update, their highest success since putting the alpha accounts in. And yet still we are 22 years down the line from day one, and this message is still not understood by the developers.
But the thing I think that surprises me the most about this, and again our Eve community, is that we've seen a lot more collaboration and cooperation in these sites than we expected, and a lot less destruction. So
there it is. That's it. They're surprised by this. It's been years. The biggest things that have ever been done inside the game have been collaborative efforts, have been players together. Even if you're talking conflict, you're still talking collaboration. You're talking consolidation. And that can be a problem. For instance, at the moment, if you don't know, there are now what they call low blocks. There are big blocks of low-sec players that are sort of fighting over the Metanox areas and stuff like this, and it's chasing all of the small groups out of low-sec, which means that it's actually chasing out a whole load of players. And there's a lot of problems with this. And it's also a very scary thing to see, because in Null-sec the same sort of thing is happening, where you're getting bigger blocks that are consolidating together. But to hear the lead game designer, the creative director of CCP going, we were shocked that people worked together. That's the curiosity. How can you still be shocked? You make the game, you're seeing what's going on. You're the one with the facts and figures that we can see. You're the one that can hear our voices about this. But then that last statement is the question, because are they hearing our voices? We know that there are more PvE players than PvP players. We know this for a fact from CCP's own information. Again, go and have a look at the dev things. I think it was either the 2019 or 21 or 23. 23 is a really good one to watch. But this is where the figures came out about the PvP versus PvE players, which was something that was confirmed by, or that confirmed an older study on MMOs in general. If you look at the online gaming scene at the moment, have a look at how many games. Rust is a perfect example. The main drive for Rust is actually PvE, not PvP. It's a combat simulator, but it's also building, going and running the monuments. Well, look at the vast majority of them. You've got Sea of Thieves, 7 Days to Die. You've got Rust, Killing Floor. The amount of games that come out, I am searching for a particular game that is just not stuck in my head. The likes of Valheim that exploded. Helldivers, that's the one I'm looking for, the 2 Helldivers. The amount of players that flock to that game, entirely PvE. People at CCP with the experience in the game, with all of the knowledge of the game, still can't quite get their head jammed into that understanding that this is something that people want. People don't want to risk their stuff all the time. Putting out these new fantastic things that you can go and fight over is already going, well, we're not interested. I don't want to fight over my resources. I'd rather do it in a safe space. Now, I am completely with you if you think, well, Null-sec should have better benefits, and I am for that. I am for the fact that high-sec is safe, as high-sec can be. We all understand ganking. Low-sec is small gang PvP and gateway to gateway to ganks, but also gateway to Null-sec. Null-sec and what is the more hardcore area out of those three. However, then you get into Poshvin and you get into Wormhole space, which is the seriously hardcore areas. Remember that those areas are not the most popular. Those areas are the most difficult. The lack of local, they are still, the lack of stations, the lack of respawns, those are the more hardcore areas, but the null blocks don't go there. Because they want their safety nets as well. They want a bit more combat, a bit more freedom from the rules, but they don't want that much freedom that they can get rolled so quickly. It's unbelievable that they can lose everything in 48 hours. Everybody wants that little bit of acceptable sort of danger versus profit. Otherwise, we'd all be in 0.1 systems mining Veldspar. But no, we go to the 0.5 systems. We sit there as a high-sec miner and mine the system, keeping an eye for the ganks. We drop into low-sec, we do our ninja mining. These sort of things benefit. And these new sort of spawns that you can get in Null-sec that are incredibly valuable, fantastic. I do think there should be a smaller section just because it would be an interesting content thing to have in anywhere. Maybe you can't unlock the thing, well, you actually couldn't unlock the thing because of the mechanics of needing capital ships to be able to do it. You couldn't get the high value ore in high-sec. I think that would be cool, but at the same time, I am not saying that the amount of profit that you should get in high-sec is anywhere near what should exist in Null. I do think there should be another version of it in Wormhole space, and it should be even more profitable. But that's beside the point. The point is that this is the way the game works. This is the player mentality. And you have a lead designer of a company that's been doing this for 22 years that still is shocked to see that.
I think people are finding these sites. They have the feeling like there's no way for me and my little crew or whoever's here to do this whole thing myself. So yeah, sure, let's share the space. Let's help each other mine this thing out and fight off anybody who's coming to try to steal from us together. So that's a pretty surprising outcome, but it's cool, and it's also very Eve, because who knew?
Who knew? Yeah.
Who knew? Who knew? We all fucking knew. We've all been talking about this for God knows how long. Except, it's not all of us. The CSM, the null blocks, they haven't been talking about that. Because they don't give a shit about that. They don't care about working together. They are with their group. They like their group. But you go and have a look at how many streams that you get that are just mining, that are just spinning sites and things like this. People having casual times. You get combat. You get quiet. You get player versus entity. You get player versus player. For the lead designer of the game to be going, who knew? When the biggest activity in EVE is mining. By far. Have a look at, if you don't understand that, there are daily financial, monthly financial reports, and you can see how much ISK is generated. Remember, for every destruction, there has to be creation to replace that, and every creation starts with a mining block. So, ignoring the core fundamentals and sabotaging the core fundamentals in ways that they've done before when they actually removed this stuff. Now that you're seeing more players join back in because of this, maybe this is the time to get vocal. If you are an independent, get vocal. Leave your comments on their video. I like comments on my videos, and I'm always welcome to hear them. Aside from when people get sweary and stuff like that, if you are gone for personal attacks, by the way, you get banned, you get booted. I've said this since the beginning. But without attacking, without being nasty, if you are a single player person, if you are a small corp person or a high-sec person, go to EVE Online's YouTube page and leave your comments. Let them know, because they're not hearing it from the CSM. the CSM is 60 odd players that get voted in by the blocks that they represent. But there isn't a block that represents the independents. There isn't a block that represents the solo players, the small gang players. Because there isn't enough people to vote somebody in that know who that person is. And no, I am not asking for this or putting my stuff forward. I don't actually have a working passport at the moment, so I couldn't be on the CSM even if I wanted to. And I don't have the time for it aside from that. But go and make yourself visible so they see this. Because it's very clear, and obviously if you know my content, you know it's been clear to me for a hell of a long time. But this is showing that it's very clear to them that there's something that they're missing. Right, before I sort of wrap up my video, I just want to draw attention to this as well, because it makes me uncomfortable.
First one is wormholes.
Wait, what?
Wormholes.
If I read comments, then wormholes don't exist.
They don't exist. Yeah, that's right. I've heard that they've been begging for our attention and that they want to be rejuvenated. So, don't worry. Don't panic. But we do want to do something for wormholes.
That, I don't know. Maybe I'm reading this wrong. Maybe it's a cross-cultural thing. But the tone just, I don't know, it hit me. Now, I'm not a wormholer, but I think everybody in Eve should be represented, and wormhole space has not been represented. Poshfin's got the same thing. They were sort of created, they were thrown out there, and then they were just completely fucking ignored. And, or they were nerfed in some funny ways when it comes to Poshfin. But I've heard that they've been begging for attention. Really? Because there has been members of the CSM that were very vocal about that. So that's one that is not even a blind spot because of the way the CSM was built. That was just a, are you going to do anything with this? And whole new mining expansion. Look at these new things that are lore specific to how the universe is working and fracturing and stuff like this, and we don't even bother to put it into there. But oh yeah, we're remembering Wormhole. I don't know. This is a weird sort of thing, and it's fair play, it's called Hot Topics, but there just seems to be a weird vibe about this that I don't understand.
I don't really have, there's no like concrete, we're going to do this or that, but I've asked the team that's going to be working on the major update to make sure that we're tending to wormholes and doing something interesting there. So that could be some new content, bringing back some old interesting content that we've had before in the space or in other spaces, and even things like could we bring some phased fields into wormholes?
Oh, wow. I actually thought, well, maybe this could actually fit there. Let's have some new content for them. Or it's an afterthought. We are thinking about them as an afterthought, and yeah, we're doing a new update, and they will be an afterthought for. I had an idea about Wormhole Space. I think there should be a secondary thing. I think Wormhole Space should get an update. But I also think that an idea that if you take the map, and it's kind of difficult to do with the new map, but if you were to take the map sort of as it is here, obviously we've got Poshfin here, but imagine if you were to like layer the wormhole systems over the top of this, so they're out of phase, but people could create gates. Obviously Null-sec can Null-sec can create their own gates and things like that, but what if we got to the point where we could start doing what the Triglavians are doing, and we could create permanent routes both into wormhole space and throughout them? I also think that they should be having a look at doing this in high-sec, that they should look at, right, how about we make some better travel lines between systems. We do it as an Eve controlled event, CCP controls it, and the players put into it, and there is a chance of like creating a wormhole, creating a jump gate between two systems that is sort of player built. Maybe it's a timed effect, maybe do it like Poshfin, so that there are the factions, the high-sec factions trying to do it, whilst simultaneously you've got the null-sec factions fighting against it. If, say, for instance, you were going for high sec to the outer ring, or you've got the Triglavians fighting against it if you were doing high sec to Poshvin or stuff like that. It could be an interesting way of doing it. Adding a bit more connectivity around about the map can never be a bad thing. At the same time, you're giving players a collaborative goal, and there could be some conflict outside of that. But don't build it for the conflict, build it for the goal. That was just an idea that I had, but not as a secondary idea, just as how can we put more content into the game that's more interesting for other people. I think that should be a way of starting everything. How is this interesting? Not how does it drive conflict. How is it interesting? So with all that being said, and a lot of that being ranted, the things that are going on, I would go and watch this video if I was you. I think it's interesting to see perspectives on it. I don't agree with a lot of the perspectives, or it's not that I don't agree with them, I'm just kind of shocked with them. I'm shocked at people sort of existing in the situation and sat there going, wow, this is shocking. Not to me, in this several years of sort of me talking about it. So at least somebody's hearing about it. That's a good thing. But definitely go and watch it if you are somebody who is, well, if you are anybody, if you are within EVE, go out, speak about this. So yeah, if you watched this far, then please go and have a look at that video. Please, regardless of where you come from, put down your opinion on their videos, on their comments. Don't be nasty, don't be harassing, don't shit on anybody. Do it civilly, do it your opinion. And when you're talking, if you're interacting with other people or talking about their opinions, do it civilly, because the moment you start swearing, and I know the vast majority of you are aware of this, but there are a couple that keep occasionally popping up that need to be taught correctly. But the moment you start swearing at another person, it doesn't matter if you are right. If you are attacking them, they're never going to listen to you. Polite, professional, and have a plan to kill everybody in a room. So putting the comments down is something that is definitely being listened to, being looked at. I personally think with the financial situation that's been going on in the background, CCP isn't losing any money, but they are sort of translating management and sort of buying back, and there is some weird and wonderful financial situations going on, and it might just be a case of with new people at the helm that they are just looking at making it more successful, or perhaps it is actually that they are looking at their player numbers and they are noticing that their player numbers were decreasing for quite a shocking amount of time, even though their revenue was going up. More revenue for any games company is a good thing. So this is something that some other companies in the sort of multiplayer genre have taken little hits recently, where they have deliberately sort of reduced their monetization to make it a better player experience. So I think there is more attention on the player experience, and it definitely looks like there is more attention there. Hearing, even though I'm sort of annoyed that it's an upsetting thing that they're realizing, that they are sort of, well, we never thought about this. Really? You really didn't? But at the same time, they are hearing about it now. That's always a good thing. So more comments, more stuff. If you want to leave comments for me, that's fantastic. I always like them and enjoy them. But comments for EVE Online, comments for CCP, that's definitely something that would be helpful, especially if you have suggestions and things like that they want to hear. So with all that being said, we have the Winter Nexus coming up. You will be able to get some stuff from it. You will be getting your LP, your login campaigns, and probably a whole load of stuff for the skinner. So that's always some nice stuff if you want to use it. For me, I've kind of completed the skinner as far as what I want from it, because I'm really dull and boring and I want to do everything in this black and white two-tone, and I've got the unlimited runs for the particular colours I want to use, so I'm sort of set up with that stuff. So I'm giving away some of the stuff to somebody who made me a lovely present, a lovely skin for one of my pioneers, so that was very nice of them. But with that stuff, there's always a bit of coin coming sort of coming in from it and stuff like that. It's always a little bit nice to see, and there's some more skill points, which I believe will actually add up to several weeks worth of extra training, so definitely worth the login campaign. On top of that, I've got the sponsorships down below in the doobly-doo. So I've got the code for Marquee Dragon. If you are looking for your Plex time for game time or multiple training certificates, stuff like that, Marquee Dragon has you sorted. If you're in the EU, you also get that sort of translation through the dollar effect from euros to dollars, which will save you a bit of money on your game time and things like that. Again, hang on to it at the moment, unless the Black Friday thing or Cyber Monday thing, I think they're calling it, is going on at the moment. But there will also be deals going on through the Christmas period. So if you don't quite have the money, don't buy something smaller at the moment. Leave it for a little while, even if you aren't using my stuff. For Marquee Dragon, the code for me is Alone in Finland, or you can click the link in the thing below. If you're somebody coming into EVE, there's a little link down below for 1 million free skill points if you're starting up a new account. If you're somebody that's going to run multiple accounts, you can make those little links yourself and sort of have it where you put money into one of your accounts, it gives you a little kickback to the second account. So sort of open and honesty there about that. But it would be nice for me to get it, because I'm really trying to get this Marshall, specifically the Marshall skin that comes along with it. I've got a few more people to get before I can get one of those, but that would be really nice for me. But yeah, thanks for all your time. Here's hoping it's going well. Bye.